Welcome to Windows on the World. We've covered regeneration and how London is being basically destroyed to be rebuilt, and this is a thing that's going on all over the capital and indeed all over the country, as we've covered, and with Piers Corbyn. Today we went to a meeting. It was in Southwark at the Town Hall, and it's really generated a bit of a problem for the council, because this is from the Evening Standard. It says estate residents elated after bid to remove them is thrown out. It says the last remaining homeowners on a South London council estate scheduled for demolition have said they were elated after a bid to remove them was thrown out by the government. 8 residents who bought their flats on the Aylesbury estate in South Southwark using the Right to Buy programme faced losing their homes under a proposed compulsory purchase order from the council. However, Community Secretary Sajid Javid said he agreed with the conclusions of an inspector's planning inquiry, which found that a compelling case in the public interest for the compulsory purchase order has not been made. So we were at that meeting this afternoon. For a background of this, we need to know that the council actually ignored a judicial review, which was basically they'd given 4 options, and we've covered this in another show, which we'll put up on the screen so you can see that, because it shows you the complete arrogance of these councils. But this is a part of a much bigger picture, and we're going to be talking to Piers Corbyn about it, who's at the meeting this afternoon. So, Piers.
Yes, this was a very important decision by the Secretary of State, where he sided with the objectors against the council's application for a compulsory purchase of the remaining leaseholders on one part of the Aylesbury estate. In fact, the demolition plan for the first quarter of the Aylesbury estate, there's still 3/4 of it still to go. Now, usually these type of objections are ignored. But the Secretary of State upheld some things the inspector said in the inquiry, and also beefed up another point. The 3 points made in the overruling of the council's compulsory purchase order application was that, first of all, their negotiations with the leaseholders was essentially weak and not serious. Secondly, they discriminated unfairly against black and ethnic minority groups, because quite a number of those were the leaseholders. And they went too far in allowing buildings which were cutting out daylight in a manner which was contrary to their own plans. And that is a point that I made in the original inquiry, as well as a number of other people, about the light. Now, this of course does throw into question the whole of the Aylesbury scheme, but of course all these things that are happening around London, which are really identikits all over the place. What we've said in response is, obviously, heads should roll in the council, starting with Peter John, the leader. Now, of course, they're not going to do that. In fact, they're busy congratulating themselves on everything they do all the time. But the way they congratulate themselves is a bit like methinks they protest if too much. What we're saying is now that they should drop the hated Aylesbury demolition scheme altogether and revert to the original ballot, which said keep the whole estate as council housing and do refurbishment and improvements like that where needed. And also we say the council should drop all of its regeneration schemes. In particular, the biggest one they're about to do now, or want to do, is the Old Kent Road. And I think it's, people have to understand what is going on here. It is really a big, big, big scale. There's a whole ring around London where council upon council upon council are finding tricks to remove people. And we have to fight as a united London-wide action to stop this social cleansing, which is actually a social hate crime against the working people, and if we don't do it, what we're going to see is the biggest social cleansing operation since the Highland clearances.
Now, the estate is starting to be regenerated, right? They're starting to get into the first stage of demolition, and this has thrown a spanner in the works, hasn't it?
That is correct. It has thrown a spanner in the works. And bear in mind, this is 19 years since Tony Blair came there and said, we're going to give you what you want. But people didn't want what he wanted them to want. So, you know, there's been delays upon delays upon delays, and lies upon lies upon lies upon lies, which is the council's most consistent policy, lying. What happened at this council cabinet meeting was they were originally just going to shovel some more money to Notting Hill Housing Trust to carry on with the demolitions, but they had to have a special report to deal with this ruling against the council's application for this compulsory purchase order, which is a vital thing they've got to have in order to complete even the first quarter of their demolition social cleansing scheme. Now, at the meeting, they were very pompous and self-congratulating about everything under the sun, which of course hides a certain underlying weakness on this matter. They did point out or admit that the Aylesbury used to be a great place, but then said it was past its sell-by date. Well, of course, it's only been past the sell-by date because they deliberately ran it down. But of course, it can be refurbished, like anything can be refurbished. And importantly, what they did do is a sleight of hand on the refurbishment costs, because at the public inquiry, it was pointed out that the cost of refurbishment, according to a scheme put forward at the time, some decade or so ago, was less than demolition, and that particular report had been hidden from the councillors, just like councillors were lied to in Cressingham Gardens in neighbouring Lambeth. However, the councillors at this meeting said, oh, no. The inspector agreed that refurbishment was too expensive. But of course, this was another refurbishment scheme. See, you can have as many refurbishment schemes as you like. And I remember very specifically when I was there involved in saying, oh, let's refurbish this, let's do that. Every time he made a suggestion, a council officer said, oh, well, if we refurbish that way, we ought to add this and add that and add that, and we should have another lift and do this and that. So whatever they did, they were trying to inflate the cost to make it look as if it couldn't be refurbished. And we say it can be refurbished. And in fact, under modern technology, anything can be refurbished. And there's no such thing as something which needs to be demolished. It's a political choice, just like austerity.
Yeah, it's a social cleansing plan. It's a plan to get these people out, really, isn't it? Because if they refurbished it, then their tenancies would remain intact, and they don't want that.
It's the crucial thing is tenants' rights. If you demolish, you're going to take away their rights to secure tenancies. Or if you are forced to give them secure tenancies, they're going to be miles away. It'll be social cleansing. And we've had the disgusting spectacle only last week of councils competing to socially cleanse people to way outside London, right?
This is happening all over, and this is what it says in this article, actually. This is one of the key grounds for rejection of the compulsory purchase order is that it would breach their human rights by forcing them to move from the neighbourhood to areas of cheaper housing. Well, where are areas of cheaper housing in London? Where are they?
Well, there are none.
Exactly.
There are none.
So they're socially cleansing them out of the area.
It's exactly right, exactly right. I mean, yeah, so what we have to do is to, people have to understand that whenever anything about demolition comes up, you just say no, not demolition, anything. Anything to do with the council must stay there, and people must demand to keep those secure tenancies intact. And that is the message coming across in Old Kent Road. And the council are running round in circles trying to con people. But again, you can see again and again the same tricks coming up. And the Old Kent Road, they're suddenly finding things which need to be done. Well, of course, some pavements need to be widened, all sorts of things need to be done. And when children need to be looked after, all of a sudden they notice there's children there. They did exactly the same on the Aylesbury. Oh, we're going to have this and that for children, bouncy castles, fun. And make it look as if these sometimes major, but mostly minor things, and make the whole plan necessary. Well, of course they don't. They're all things that could be done anyway.
What they're doing is superficially changing the
Yes.
environment. For instance, we see this a lot with things like the massive pavements everywhere and the narrowing of roads. This is all part of this big agenda to get traffic out of the area, and that was a big thing at the meeting we went to. It was held by using Delphi technique, which
Yes.
we've discussed many times, and we've done many shows on that. We'll put the links to those shows in because they're very interesting. But it says here, Mark Williams, Southwark's cabinet member for the regeneration and new homes, said, "We are committed to the regeneration proposals and will continue to negotiate with leaseholders on all phases of the regeneration programme to buy back their properties and allow the work, which is supported by the vast majority of residents on the estate, to move forward as soon as possible." Again, soundbite.
Well,
Yeah.
Of course, it is a direct lie.
Yeah.
It's not supported by the
Yeah.
vast majority
Yeah.
on the estate. It's not supported by even a small minority. It's supported probably by a tiny number of people. We have challenged Mark Williams to a new ballot. He's refused, even though Greater London Assembly policy is for ballots over regeneration and developments. But the council doesn't feel obliged to carry things out. They're running scared with democracy. And what we are saying, we demand a ballot, we demand return to the refurbishment proposals, and we demand that everybody keeps their secure tenancies where they are. And we want to extend what's happening on the Aylesbury and Old Kent Road to a London-wide, even a nationwide opposition to these social cleansing schemes, which often are just turning into land bank games for money laundering. For example, in Islington, there's some new blocks which are private developments, and they're 40% empty still because they've just been bought by largely foreign investors for money laundering purposes. So what we have in London is a kind of land bank being set up for people who are thieving from all over the world, and the actual occupants of London have been driven out. And as I said, this is as great a disgrace against humanity as the Highland clearances, and we've got to have a united stand against it in totality.
Yeah, it's the biggest upheaval that I've ever seen, and it's happening very, very quickly. And it's happening on the back of green fluffy things like regeneration and business enterprise zones.
And cycling.
And cycling. Cycling is the big one. It's all being
Oh,
pushed
that
on
was
cycling.
that's a big thing on Old Kent Road. Oh,
Yeah.
well, you mean no cycling? Look, hang on, look. The Old Kent Road is a main route to Europe, right? It's the Romans came along it. It's 2,000 years old, this road, and the idea of building a community around the road like that, a main road, is insane. Actually, that is just a cover for massive building on the Old Kent Road for private developments, and well, using the private development to fund the tube, and the tube to bring the people to live in the private for private developments. We say that inner London stops at Elephant and Castle, and we don't need any of this. And that argument applies all over London. We've got to limit central London to central London and stop social cleansing.
That's it. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Welcome back to Windows on the World. We're talking about this regeneration programme, how it's happening, why it's happening, and to who it's happening. So welcome back, Piers.
How do you do? Yes. That meeting of the Southwark Cabinet, and also other meetings like in Wandsworth and in Lambeth, it's clear what happens is the councillors act as if, in fact, most of them probably believe they're doing the best for the people under the circumstances offered. And you see those say, oh, the coalition made us have to go and ask to privatise this bit because they wouldn't give us enough money for the repairs. And of course they had themselves got into repair problems on these estates by not doing repairs when they should, and so forth. And then they say, oh, and now the Tory government is also making them have to go down certain routes. So, in other words, what's happened over the last 2 decades, really, is that successive governments and Whitehall and the council bureaucracies, working hand in glove with developers, have manipulated councils and councillors down a certain route, just like rats are sent down a maze.
We've covered this in our regeneration show.
Yes.
We've done many shows on this. I'm going to put the links in because we had Simon Elmer here from Architects for Social Housing. We've been very deeply into what this is about. But what we're talking about now is how it's being imposed on people. And that was very interesting at that council meeting because, yeah, they spent most of the time acting to an audience.
Yeah.
Of how great they were, how many changes
But the
they'd
audience
made.
was totally hostile to them.
Yes, they were pretty much hostile. It wasn't just us, was it? But but it is quite sickening, yeah, to hear these PR statements because really what they're doing is they're being led. They're being completely led and pushed.
I was a councillor. I remember being in meetings where we were led, and we were told, well, actually, Mr. Corbyn, if you don't do this, then you could be subject to surcharge. In other words, your whole life's being can be taken away.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah. Well, this is it. They're just puppets. I mean, the thing is though, also we've covered this with people like Savills writing policy, and Lend-Lease was mentioned today. And these are the people who are behind. This is the financial structure behind the so-called
very
regeneration.
big international players, and they're posing as little happy-clappy, local friendly advisors. That is just complete lies. They're nothing of the sort. They're thieves.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. They play it as though you're kind of sort of you're the sort of token left-wing radical in there. When you're actually just putting across points that are on everybody's mind. So they made this point. I think it was that guy who was chairing it. He was saying that
Peter John.
He was saying, well, peers, yes, we know about all your well-rehearsed responses. As though you've been practicing for this for ages.
Well, they're the ones with the well-rehearsed responses.
Exactly. So that was a pure reversal, really, wasn't it? Yeah.
That's right.
But it wasn't at the stage of the Elephant and Castle one we went to, because that was done purely on Delphi techniques, a public meeting. So what we're seeing is these different tiers, aren't we?
Yes.
So the idea of that this is a local issue. Yeah. It's not a local issue. No. It's a global action plan implemented locally, and I keep going on about this. And we're seeing the same thing. We even got mention of the community hub today, didn't we? Sure. We're going to get the community hub, which is going to be everywhere. You're going to have a community.
And they're going to help children.
Yes.
They always help the children. They manipulate children against their parents. That's what's it about.
Exactly. What these hubs are about is about controlling the narrative. The whole thing is about making it look as though you're happy with what you've got. So they bring in those people in there, and they're going to mentor people locally. This thing about helping local businesses is absolute nonsense, as we've seen.
No, they're destroying local businesses, and the businesses are saying that.
Yeah. And we picked that up at that Elephant and Castle meeting, didn't we? Because that guy said he hadn't been consulted, and they said, oh, well, we'll have to try harder. He said, well, there's another 800 businesses here that haven't been consulted either. They said, well, we'll make an effort, And obviously, they're leaving that out of the equation, because self-employment under this new regime that we're seeing is not what's wanted. And how do we get that over to people, peers? We're trying our best.
Well, I think important things about the fight back in practical terms are what we should maybe address at this point. In terms of Old Kent Road, anyone involved, these are the council's propaganda things, and they give you a questionnaire in it. Well, if you haven't filled it in already, you can do it online, and you can get samples of the one I filled in. I put no in every box. I'm opposed to everything they suggest. The point being that even when they suggest things which might sound okay, they can be done anyway, which are quite outside any grand scheme. And talking of our own schemes against the whole lot, we have to widen the struggles as much as possible. And there is quite an important ACT's the Housing Act, this is the Housing Planning Act Summit on the 22nd of October, which is a public event, anyone can come. And that is important because the Housing and Planning Act actually is to prepare tenants' rights to be mutilated and socially cleansed in the interest of corporate capital and investors. So go along to those things, but above all, united action against all social cleansing and demand ballots everywhere.
Yes, because this isn't just about regeneration, it's about something much bigger, and we've covered that. So look into it and look at the other shows. We're going to put the links on. We're going to now look at some of the footage that was shot at that council meeting in Southwark, and some of the self-congratulatory statements made by the council and some of the comments made by the people who were at that council meeting.
But I've got plenty more to say, so looking at the kind of healthy active lives agenda, I think we have a lot to be really proud of in this borough, actually, being really pioneering and visionary in some of the interventions that have been made over the last few years. And in particular this summer, of course, we launched the universal free swim and gym offer, which is really exciting, unique in London. And the statistics so far are looking brilliant. It's being really, really well used. Registrations going up all the time and users. So absolutely delighted to be able to put as a commitment to encourage all Southwark residents to make use of it, because it's already there. But I also wanted to mention a couple of other things. One is our commitment towards green flags, just to flag that we've actually got 25, which makes our second in all London boroughs for the number of green flags we have, which is hugely impressive and a testament not only to our parks team and our grounds maintenance team, but all our wonderful friends groups and volunteers in the borough that work so hard to make our green spaces so beautiful. And then finally, I just wanted to mention that we have now in the council plan a commitment to work to improve air quality, including working with a new mayor of London who has a plan to extend the ULEZ, so the ultra low emission zone, right down to the South Circular, which would encompass nearly all of our borough. Very exciting, and an idea that Southwark has been pushing for a number of years, I believe. So brilliant that our new mayor is pushing forward with it, and we'll do anything that we can to address the air quality issues that we have in our city.
Yeah, very nice PR statement there, and the latter part of that was all about what we've been talking about with the Agenda 21 policies of ridding London of cars, with the help, of course, of the puppet Sadiq Khan.
In relation to our environmental services, I'm very proud that we've maintained our records when it comes to cleaning the streets and our estates, and also improving the quality of the environment. As you know, I overlap slightly with Councillor Anderson in relation to air quality and air pollution, and that's certainly one of our key areas as we progress forward in the coming years.
Well, the self-congratulatory statements went on, and they were all really reading from press releases, and this is all about these policies that we've been talking about, the regeneration, Agenda 21, all these things that are being brought into your local area, which are done on the back of green sounding fluffy things. Now we hear that despite the judicial review, which stated that the original choices which were given to the residents had to be given to the residents, in other words, refurbishment was an option, we're now being told that demolition is the only option. So these people are going against a judicial review.
Mark, you just said that it's not, there's not any other thing than just demolish Wendover. Is that what you're saying? I'm not quite sure about it.
So just to be really clear, the inspector's report very clearly said that demolition is the only option and rebuild is the only option, that refurbishment is not an option. Our own view, which we've put forward... Well,
you suppressed, your officer suppressed
the question has been answered, please let me answer it. As we all know, if we were to refurbish the Aylesbury estate, which isn't practically possible because it's a huge expense and it wouldn't solve many of the issues, the leaseholders on the Aylesbury would be facing six-figure Section 20 notices.
Well, we have that in Finchley. I mean, obviously, if they can have that done in Finchley, I don't see why we can't have it done in Aylesbury estate.
Okay, well, thank goodness we're not in Finchley. Is all I can say. I'm going to look. I mean, if you've got a question, I'll call on you after I've heard from the officers. Okay. If you've got a specific question you want to raise after that, but I'm going to hear from Steve, John, and Neil now. If you've got.
So we hear Southwark Council have ignored the judicial review and spend their time reading out PR statements and willfully ignoring the public that they are there to serve. Now, this is not unique. This re-engineering of the country and its agenda for control through local authorities is in every borough. This is a global action plan implemented locally. Check out the video archive on Windows on the World for these selected shows. Social housing destroyed by councils, housing and local amenities sold off by councils, UK housing crisis / regeneration, social cleansing exposed, BBC lies, Lambeth corruption exposed, social cleansing and housing crisis explained, corrupt Lambeth Council and property developers. This will give you an insight into what's going on, but this is ongoing and it is going to affect you. So now we're going into an overview of what this is about, what you will see locally. We've covered this before, but it's good to recap. Then we're going to go into the elephant and castle regeneration. Now, this is what you will see in your local area and what is really happening behind the green propaganda. If you live in any kind of urban environment, your surroundings are being re-engineered to appear more cycling and pedestrian friendly. You will see new high-density blocks of flats being built and council housing destroyed. You will see more CCTV and the beginning of gated communities with their own mini Tesco, gym and the usual corporate coffee shops and watering holes. You will be told that public transport links are being improved. You are being encouraged to stay in one place. All of your city will be the same and there will be no need to travel anywhere apart from going to work and coming home. You will be given a community hub where change agents will be monitoring and dictating public opinion for you. The main thing you will notice first of all is that private transport and property is being restricted. Local businesses will be priced out and the appearance will be that they are being supported by the council. They are not. This is part of a worldwide agenda to control population. The idea is to get large numbers of people into cities and have total police state control of population. This is being done all over London and in most towns and cities around the UK. It is also happening rapidly in other countries. The main thing about this global action plan is it is being implemented with no choice but with the appearance of public participation. You will be told that your opinion counts and given surveys with leading questions such as, how much more cycling do you want? Local businesses will be told they are being consulted. They are not. This is being implemented rapidly and the contracts will have been signed with developers already. The public consultation is a facade. You will be given a new community hub run by volunteers and trained change agents who will be spokespersons for the new plans which will be appearing in local newspapers, council leaflets and propaganda newspapers given away as community news. Now these are run by these community interest groups and companies. These will contain fluffy things about local artists and trivial stories, but amongst the waffle will be new plans being forced through, described as being improvements or regeneration. There will be stories promoting the new developments and the core principles of the agenda, which this article outlines. That's the article Big Society Change Agents on windowsontheworld.net. Now, what you will not see happening locally and in these articles and these newspapers and any form of propaganda leaflet coming from the council are the views of real local people. Now, the videos and information in the article Big Society Change Agents will explain fully the goals and objectives of these draconian policies. The aim is complete control of population in high density areas with constant and total surveillance. All this is done on the back of so-called green policies which your local council signed up for at the turn of the millennium. You will be monitored 24 hours a day in a virtual prison surrounded by Starbucks and corporate chain stores. The main point is that the green agenda is not about your welfare. It is about complete control of everything with massive social cleansing and the loss of all rights to global governance through the United Nations.
this is the big one. I've lived in the area for 40 years, in the same council flat, and I was a councillor from 1986 to 1990. So I've seen a lot of changes in the Old Kent Road area. And this action plan, or opportunity zone, whatever they want to call it, but on the website it's the Old Kent Road Area Action Plan, involves a massive extension of central London southwards. And this will destroy and socially cleanse the whole Old Kent Road area, going all the way to New Cross, from the Elephant. Now already the Walworth area itself has been destroyed 90% by the Haygate and Elephant development. Only it's been halted because of resistance on the Aylesbury estate, where still we're waiting for the outcome of an inquiry, which is severely held up Notting Hill Housing Trust, who have now suddenly announced that they're only going to provide half the social housing they promised. In other words, everything we said about the intentions of the authorities to socially cleanse the whole area totally is being borne out. Now, what they want to do in the Old Kent Road area, and here's a map of it, is basically impose on it a development at least 4 times bigger than the disgraced Haygate development. Now on the Haygate Elephant, what they did, they promised that there'll be no destruction in council housing and everyone would have the right to return. That was a complete lie. Now the councils have different excuses, blah blah blah. The outcome was not a single council property was built to replace the destroyed ones, and people did not have the right to return. A few did manage to get back, but some of them were rehoused beyond the M25. In other words, this was social cleansing in totality. Now what's happened at the meeting on yesterday was very interesting, because there's been a number of meetings and a number of people have been warning all along, look here, you're saying you're trying to discuss things with us in order to develop a plan. Well, hang on, wait a minute, what is really going on? And there it was laid bare what's going on. They already have a plan, they already have a total plan, and they're calling these meetings to ask us questions like, well, are you worried about dog shit? Are you worried about lack of cycle plan? Do you want more green spaces? Complete little questions that could be dealt with without any big plan, but they're all justifications to impose a gigantic social cleansing plan. So I asked the lead councillor just 2 pretty pertinent questions. I said, 1, you're giving us guarantees about no destruction of council housing and all this sort of stuff. Can you explain what these guarantees mean? How come that they won't be a pack of lies just like was on the Haygate estate? And can you agree that nothing will happen without ballots? And of course we want ballots that are adhered to, unlike the ballot on the Aylesbury, which they trashed via a certain Mr. David Miliband. And even though it is GLA policy, Greater London Assembly policy, to have ballots on all regeneration, the councillor said, no, Piers, we don't have any plan for ballots. No plan for democracy. Okay. Now look, what is this all about? Basically, they're saying this is somehow needed. Now I say it's not needed, and people at the meeting said, look, we do not want central London extended into the Old Kent Road area. And interestingly, of course, they slide everything together to look like a fait accompli. They said, oh, you want more tube lines, don't you? But then it was revealed at the meeting, or certainly they claim this, that they want the tube lines to bring more people, and they want the people to come to occupy luxury housing, and they're going to use the incomes from luxury housing to pay for the tube lines, and then they'll have some more luxury housing. And of course this is total social cleansing. So we complained there that a lot of council estates in the area just don't even know what's going on, and they said, oh, well, they've been asked. And then somebody from the business community popped up and said, Nobody in the business community whatsoever has been asked about this plan. Nobody. That's what he said. So we said, look, we want no evictions of businesses or homes, and we want nothing can move unless there are balance. Both those things the council have refused to commit. So what we're saying about this plan is it is not for us, and we urge everyone to go on the website and vote no, no, no. You go to Old Kent Road AAP and you will find out about it. And to be specific, we're saying no to this evil social cleansing, catastrophe, no evictions of businesses or homes, stop social cleansing, and nothing should be done without balance. Go on the website and say no to this plan. And I think together we can stop it, because these sort of impositions come from Blairite, international corporations, American money, and so forth. The sort of giant developments which destroy actually the meaning of life in London, and we've got to stop it.